Last up this morning, we have Insilico, and Alex is joining us from, I'm not even sure where Alex is today.
Well, today I'm in Dubai. I just spoke at a conference here, and yeah, this week I basically toured the Middle East. We do have geographical presence here, and would be very happy to tell you about it.
Wonderful.
And I'll share a screen just to start the presentation. And I just looked at who else is in the audience and noticed a lot of familiar faces, which is great. So hopefully we can leave maybe a couple minutes or maybe like 5-10 minutes at the end so I can show the most recent papers, because it's a company presentation, just like last speaker. And I would like to show some of our recent research to some of the people that we know. So it's not because many of them know the company. So a few words about Insilico. I think many of you know us very well. So we are an AI-powered biotechnology company. We're truly global. We span pretty much every time zone. We have R&D presence in Asia, in the Middle East, and in North America. Our US headquarters are in New York. Our Asian headquarters are in Hong Kong, even though our first office in Asia was in Taipei. We still have substantial presence there, and now we're scaling up in the Middle East. Our main value is to put patient first. So we are currently rushing to the clinic to ensure that patients can get their medicines. And we want to ensure that it's done in the most safe and credible way. We are committed to relentless innovation, and we are very transparent and we value integrity. So we publish approximately 1 to 2 research papers a month. We have commercially available platforms called Panda Omics, Chemistry 42, and Insilico. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And we are the company with over 30 AI-derived preclinical and clinical programs. So we do have some clinical stage assets as well. So we are pretty substantial. We were born originally in 2014, and then we expanded globally very rapidly. Some disclaimers that I need to make, because the company is at the stage where we need to make those disclaimers. No forward-looking statements, not investment advice. Also, I am personally very dedicated to longevity, and you can find more about that at longevitypledge.org. So pretty much everything I do and all my time is dedicated to longevity research. However, the company is also, of course, focused on the boring aspect of drug discovery. If you are interested in learning more about how to engage in longevity medicine and learn a little bit more about that, one of the speakers at MetaBCT was Evelyn Biskup, who is co-developing a course with me, and you can get those courses at longevity.degree for free. CME accredited course, Longevity Medicine 101, and now we just got the CME certification for 201. And those courses are also available at the NHS and the HDR UK platforms. One of the reasons why we are very focused on aging and longevity as a company is because complete elimination of individual diseases would not gain substantial number of life years in terms of the gains to life expectancy. So here, for example, one of the studies, and there are many studies supporting those claims, demonstrating that complete elimination of cancer would give you just 2.3 years at birth and 1.2 years at age 65. So complete elimination of individual diseases will not significantly impact longevity, life expectancy in the US, for example. So we really need to target aging directly and preferably aging and disease at the same time. So what we are asking ourselves for a very long time now is, what is the most credible and sustainable way to research and commercialize longevity? And for that, we have co-founded the conference called Aging Research and Drug Discovery, very friendly with Metabicity, by the way. We always promote Metabicity to people who participate at the RDD. And we try to bring together pharma and top-level academic leaders and the industry insiders, consulting companies, and venture capitalists to discuss similar topics as we're discussing at Metabicity. How do we discover and develop drugs in the most credible way and put them through the traditional regulatory framework? So now to shift gears into what we do. So AI can help solve aging in a big way. So in 2014, there was an advent of deep learning. We've seen deep neural networks outperforming humans in image recognition, voice recognition, text recognition. Autonomous driving even right now is available, and in early 2016, you already had some of those systems available on some cars. Tesla introduced autonomous driving very recently. But in biomedicine, the propagation of deep learning is much slower. We were one of the first to utilize deep generative reinforcement learning for many biomedical tasks. So at Deep Longevity, a spin-off out of Insilico, we are now working very hard to develop many different aging clocks using a variety of data types and also combinations of various data types. And if I do have the time, I'll show a couple papers on mental health, depression, motivation, behavioral modification. I actually think that this is the easiest area to currently work on aging using AI, because some of the psychological states are pretty plastic and could be modified. So we can study aging clocks on human psychology and then link to biology. And Insilico is focused on biomarker development, target ID, protein design. We do molecular screening, molecular generation, clinical trial design, real-world data analytics, and precision medicine. So we try to go end-to-end. It's a pretty big goal. And this was enabled by deep generative reinforcement learning. Just to illustrate, it's better to use a picture. So a picture is usually worth 1,000 words. And nowadays, just a few words can describe a picture, and AI will generate a picture for you. So you've seen beautiful images by Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, where you describe an image and the system designs it for you. However, this technology is not exactly new. So the first generative systems, GANs, where generative adversarial networks were proposed in 2014. By 2017, they could already imagine humans with the desired properties in a way where it's indistinguishable from reality. So those humans do not exist. And again, they were generated in 2017. Nowadays, transformer neural networks and generative adversarial networks can make those humans so realistic you would not be able to distinguish them from real pictures. And one of the features that is usually preserved is age. So you can generate age and predict age utilizing deep generative reinforcement learning. And you can also, after you demonstrated that you can do it with age, you can add many other features and go into diseases. So in 2014, I got this idea where we could use massive longitudinal data sets to train deep neural networks to predict chronological age in a healthy state. We can call it biological age. So ideally, we need to get healthy or moderately healthy longitudinal data. And we can use transcriptomics, proteomics, methylation, imaging, EEG, ECG, blood tests, behavioral data, either in a standalone aging clock or in a combo aging clock, where some of those data types could be combined. And some of the previously incompatible data types could be combined to predict just one feature, age. And then once those networks are trained, you can either retrain them on specific diseases, or you can try to use them to identify different novel targets. So look at the individual importance of each feature for the accuracy of the prediction. of the predictor. You can derive causal graphs, and as I've mentioned before, you can generate synthetic data that is indistinguishable from reality. So this is actually a very powerful approach that can be used for many applications. We use it for target ID a lot, and I'm going to describe one case where we used this technique to identify biological targets and went after an aging clock-derived therapeutic in 2020. We published a number of aging clocks. We have also multiple aging clocks at Deep Longevity currently integrated on Young AI and also available via software as a service. And Deep Longevity, again, is a spin-off out of Insilico. It's a separate company now, traded, was acquired by a publicly traded company. We have the first microbionic aging clocks that we also have the patent on right now. It was granted. Transcriptomic aging clocks, hematological aging clocks, psychological aging clocks, methylation aging clocks, photographic aging clocks. We can predict age using pretty much any data type that changes in time. And one of the reasons why we apply for patents is not exactly to enforce them, but to also show priority. Because again, on microbiome, we published the first one in 2018 and applied for patents in 2017. So now aging clocks are great. We can now measure everything, but then how do we use the resulting deep neural networks or those predictions to rapidly discover and develop dual purpose therapeutics, and ideally targeting aging and disease at the same time. So I think that this is the most credible way to go after aging in pharma. So you identify targets that are implicated in aging, and also in disease, and you purpose them towards specific diseases, do the clinical trials, and then you would be able to repurpose back into aging. So to go after this goal, we decided to form Insilico Medicine 2014. Now we have about 250, 260 scientists globally. We also have 210 to 250, depending on the time of the year and the program, full-time equivalents within contract research organizations that we contract to do experimental work. And we're about 50-50 AI and ML scientists and software developers and drug hunters. So we are pretty well known in the industry. Last year and this year, we were CB Insights top 100 AI companies globally, top 10 healthcare. And this is how we operate. So we have an AI team, which is focusing on generative AI, in generative biology, generative chemistry. So as I mentioned, this is, you've seen those deepfakes. We can make those deepfakes on the data types that are not comprehensible to the human brain and eye. So gene expression, protein expression, chemistry data. We have CADD and quantum AI team. Most of these guys are in Taiwan. And they are focusing on molecular modeling. And we, of course, this AI approach is not possible without the high performance computing team operating on graphics processing unit enabled supercomputers. We also do most of the computation in the cloud. And thank you, Amazon, thank you, Microsoft, for enabling companies like us to do what we do. However, AI for drug discovery is actually, in my opinion, not practical or possible without your own drug discovery programs. So you can support a big pharma all you want, but in order to truly demonstrate that AI can accelerate, you need to go after your own programs. Because everybody, like so many pharmaceutical companies have much more data than startups, even the startups that collect massive population level data. However, this data needs to be turned into valuable assets, and you need to demonstrate that those assets can be created in order to partner on AI. So I started the company as an AI first company. So we, of course, collaborate with many pharma companies. And then I was joined by Dr. Feng Ren, PhD from Harvard, 11 years at GSK. And then he helped list Medicine. It's a contract research organization primarily focusing on chemistry. He took it all the way to $8 billion capitalization. And then he joined Insilico to after he saw what AI can do at Medicine. And he started the biology team, medicinal chemistry team, CRO, prioritization team, preclinical team, and CMC team. And those teams work on top of many contract research organizations. So now we can direct research into many, many CROs globally and conduct studies in parallel and also in a highly distributed manner. So you don't need to have your own lab, even though we have one. You can utilize many, many contract research organizations to distribute the work. And this is, I think, that is the optimal path for an AI-powered drug discovery company. So basically focusing on AI platform and the pipeline of therapeutics. So this is part of our team at a recent offsite, and we are very happy being two yin-yang CEOs. We, of course, got substantial amount of funding, over 415 million to date, from a group of healthcare, financial investors, AI investors, to go after drug discovery, you really need to fundraise quite a bit because from in the past, the cost of the development and discovery of one drug costed over $1.8 billion. That's from Steve Paul's paper, very famous. And here you've got different stages of drug discovery and development, probabilities of success. So again, target discovery is the area where most of the drugs fail at the early preclinical stage. And then the next highest failure rate you have in phase 2 human clinical trials, where most of the drugs fail due to efficacy. And again, predominantly because of the poor target choice or poor biological hypothesis in this early stage. So figuring out the biology is the most complicated and most important step in drug discovery, but it also takes a lot of time. So target discovery may take you from 1 to 10 years in academia to figure out a target, and then the clinical trials could take you additional 8 years, and with discovery, it makes it about 15 years. And what we have done with the power of AI since 2020 is we went from disease hypothesis all the way to phase 1. So we expect to complete the phase 1 soon. When we started Insilico, we looked at many steps that a pharmaceutical company needs to take, or the pharmaceutical company and the biotechnology company or academia need to take to identify targets, to generate small molecules, and then to do clinical trials. So here we looked also at the best estimates for the fastest biotech, how long it usually takes for each step and how they do it. So sometimes to formulate a disease hypothesis, you may just read some scientific paper, get a eureka moment, go test it in the lab, validate, and you've got a target. But there are many ways to discover targets. There are ways to use genomic data, proteomic data, transcriptomic data, literature research. Usually it's a combination of many different approaches on how to identify targets. And there are also many ways to generate small molecules with the desired properties. So what we decided to do is we decided to develop AI engines that can solve most of those problems in the end-to-end format. So pretty much like a Lego game, but with one single model zoo. So many of those models that we develop can be applied for many applications. And they can be combined together to go after disease hypothesis, target ID, hit identification, lead identification. You've all heard about AlphaFold recently, so big breakthrough by DeepMind, but it's a tiny piece of the entire drug discovery puzzle. So you can see that obtained crystal structure is one of the pieces, and that's what AlphaFold does for you. But you need to do a lot of other other tasks in order to discover a drug. And actually, many of the steps cannot be augmented with AI. In many areas, you still need to perform animal experiments and get experimental data. So there is huge difference between AI discovered therapeutic and AI designed therapeutic. So there are several companies, to my knowledge, 3 or maybe even 4, that took AI designed molecules into human clinical trials already. So that's when the target is known and you are just doing mechanical process of identifying the best molecule and taking it forward. There are some companies that have AI discovered drugs where they identify the target and then repurposed or reused somebody else's molecule to take it into human clinical trials. But to my knowledge, nobody had done AI discovered and AI design today because the probability of this happening is pretty low. It's actually very difficult to do both of that. So at Insilico, we decided to go end to end. So we have a system which allows you to identify targets, generate small molecules, and predict clinical trials. So it's one big engine. However, when we work with the pharmaceutical companies, they usually have those steps disconnected. So we've got biology team, target discovery team, therapeutic area team that is more interested in, for example, discovering or annotating individual targets, figuring out the biology. So we have a system called PandaOmics for that. It's a very popular system nowadays. A lot of organizations and individual experts in target hunting are using it. It's available via SaaS. It's not that expensive. Even high school can use high school students can use it to identify targets at professor level, and some of them do. Chemistry 42 allows you to design small molecules with the desired properties. So think of it as deepfakes on chemistry. So you can describe the molecule you want for a given protein target, and the system will do it for you in 72 hours, and you can send those molecules for synthesis. And the hit rate is pretty respectable depending on the target class. And we have Insilico, the system is going to be available end of this year for licensing already. So as a software, took us 6.5 to 7 years to develop. This is the system which allows you to predict the outcomes of phase 2 to phase 3 transitions. That's the grand challenge of the pharmaceutical industry. And by the way, you're all invited to our launch day on November 14th. If you go to insilico.com, there will be a link to register for our launch day of our new PandaOmics version 3.0, Chemistry 42 2.0, and Insilico is going to be still in the baby steps mode in version 1.0. And now I would like to pose a question. Can AI help identify targets that are common in aging and disease? So finding this intersection, and that's our company's mission. We recently published a paper demonstrating how we can utilize different artificial intelligence approaches to identify those dual-purpose therapeutics. And by the way, in this paper, we've made a lot of those target hypotheses available. So if you're a venture fund, you can just take a darts board, print either this heat map, which came from this paper, or the next slide on the darts board, and start throwing darts and formulating your pipelines. So in this study, we took a lot of data from age-associated diseases, predominantly gene expression, protein expression, methylation data, and data from non-age-associated diseases. Ran those data sets through our PandaOmics, so multiple omics AI scores, different philosophies for target discovery, text-based scores for more confidence. So of course you lose novelty once you go text, but it's very often important to find a balance between novelty and confidence. We also have QOL credibility scores and financial scores coming from the different sources of grant data, company funding, etc. And we create a matrix of different genes and their implication in the different age-associated diseases and aging itself. And then we map them by hallmarks of aging. So in this paper, we've demonstrated that you can take a bunch of very promising targets, categorize them by the level of confidence. So how confident you are that they're going to be working in the disease, and also by druggability. So you're estimating how druggable they are, because of course you don't want to spend a lot of time in chemistry if you want to bet on a target, but sometimes you do if the target is novel, and it will pay off. And we've mapped those targets by the different hallmarks of aging. So again, you can just take a darts board and start throwing darts at it and trying those targets out for aging and longevity, preferably in higher mammals, because that's where many of those targets are likely to work. We did not use a fly or worm data to discover those targets. And now I'm going to talk about the case study, our first dual-purpose therapeutics targeting aging and disease at the same time. Again, we have a pipeline. So in
Alex,
2020, yep.
I just wanted to warn you with the opportunity to speak with some of the folks who are on this call, where we're about at the 5-minute point.
Okay. So basically, 2020, we decided to test if we can utilize our software to go after our own therapeutic programs. So novel target, novel molecule, broad disease, no cure associated with aging. We decided to choose IPF, big disease, $3 billion in revenue every year, currently 2 approved drugs, nintedanib, pirfenidone. And it's also age-associated. Age of onset is 55 to 65. So very rapidly, in under 18 months, we achieved preclinical candidate with a novel target. So it has never been in clinical trials before. And in under 30 months, we went into phase 1, all the way from 0 to phase 1. And in between, we also conducted a small phase 0 study, 8 healthy volunteers in Australia last November, microdosing to understand the target a little bit better, tox and the distribution profile. And again, it's under 30 months in phase 1, so AI can definitely accelerate. Again, until phase 2 is complete, we cannot make any substantial claims, but all the preclinical work has been completed and multiple preclinical models demonstrated efficacy. So to my knowledge, that's the first AI discovered and AI designed therapeutic where AI was used for target discovery and generative chemistry. And currently we have 31 programs, 29 internal. Here are some targets I can talk about. So our first program, we're not disclosing the target. The second program is PhD2. Actually, Kristen Fortney, BioAge, also prioritized PhD2 HIF1 alpha for in her pipeline. So it's an interesting therapeutic, but we decided to use our own molecule because we were very concerned about specific properties of the other molecules on the field. And since February 2021, we've nominated 8 preclinical candidates for different diseases, different molecules. And now we are working on a lab. I'm going to present it in December, hopefully. It's already the field application testing is being completed right now, but I need to now test the software. And this lab is fully automated. There are no humans going into this part of the lab. It's operated by AGVs, autonomous guided vehicles, and it consists of several fully automated islands. When the microplate reaches that island, it's being picked up and the robot locally does the work. But even in between the islands, the samples, the compounds are being transported and operated on with single arm, dual arm AGVs. We have the compound management station, very, very advanced, that allows us to work with many compounds from the libraries. We have the cell culture station, GS station, imaging station, and a high throughput screening station. So very advanced cell culture platform utilizing Hamilton robotics. And we can do 2D, 3D culture. We can use primary samples, but originally we actually planned to use animals for that, so animal iPSCs. And then xenografts, so tumor grafts. We can do HTS very rapidly using echo machines, also state of the art. And for NGS, we have a dual arm robot that can do high throughput screening experiments, but also can even pipette like a human from Nature Methods paper. And we use standard Illumina equipment for sequencing. The idea is to do deep phenotyping, transcriptomics, methylation, and DNA sequencing, and then expose the culture to or primary cells to a large number of compounds that we predict to be active for that specific condition or even aging, and then look at phenotypic methylation and transcriptional response. So looking forward to collaborate, and again, we're very collaborative. We publish a lot of papers, and once the lab becomes operational, you're welcome to use it for your purposes as well.
Well, thank you, Alex. That's a powerful way to end the morning session. Speaking as somebody who has spent nearly 30 years in R&D, you have changed. You haven't just broken the bar. You've completely changed how we should expect to develop, at least from discovery to phase 1, and making it far more cost effective and time efficient, which was always needed. So thank you for doing that. But wow, there's a lot going on for Insilico.
Yeah, it's very exciting. So it's great to not go after fundraising, but start executing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thomas, I suspect you have a question.
Well, I had a quick question I put in the chat, Alice, as I was looking at your Insilico that you're unveiling in a couple of weeks or in a month. Does that predict efficacy, translation, or safety as well? And if so, where do you draw your safety database?
So what we do at Insilico, we predict the probability of phase transition utilizing 3 approaches. So one approach is looking at how implicated the target is in the disease. So it's basically target choice score. Then we have the clinical trials score. So the clinical trials analysis score, it's a multimodal transformer, which allows you to utilize a lot of text data and different other data types to predict the success or failure of the trial. And then you can go down to individual features to understand why this score is low or high, and some of those scores are related to safety. So it depends on the case.
Thank you. So maybe we could take it offline. I'm very interested to hear, because as you probably recall, I think you're doing amazing stuff at the top of the funnel, the discovery to design a target and design, and then you've gotten into the clinic. But a lot of the money, the cost and time is in the clinical development, and anything that helps that is going to be really, really interesting.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So here is a slide which kind of describes what we do. So we're looking at drug likeness, target choice, text mining score, trans score, and trial design score. And we looked at a lot of trials to do that. And we also do a lot of prospective validation, where we make a prediction and then wait for several years and look at whether we predicted correctly or incorrectly. So you can actually find a bunch of those predictions on ResearchGate. Those are not peer-reviewed papers, but they hopefully one day will become peer-reviewed papers. So we actually outlined how we do it.
It's good to know. It's a great point, Thomas, in terms of the money spent for an awful lot of failures across many therapeutic areas. That brings us to the end of the morning's session. Alex, again, thank you so much for your time. I can't recall what time it is in Dubai, having been there, but I know it's
still
much
early.
later in the day. It's still normal business hours. And thank you, everybody, for your time and some incredible movement in the longevity field.